Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Things just keep getting better and better and better for XRP holders. There's no stop to the excellent news and developments pertaining to the XRP ecosystem. Take a look at this one. BNY Melon will have custody of Ripple's new stablecoin as institutional interest in crypto swells. Now, BNY Melon, they are the oldest bank in the United States, and they're also the world's largest custodian. That's right, they're the world's largest custodian on the entire planet. And they've said yes to Ripple. And do you understand why this matters? Like the degree to which this, extends credibility. Obviously, Ripple's among the most credible of businesses in the entire crypto space. XRP, tried and true, it's battle tested, it's been around over a decade. One of the most useful coins in the entire industry, for the entire asset class. Most adopted. And so it's already trusted there. There's already a certain high level of respect, except for with the people who suffer from XRP derangement syndrome. But the adults, they get it, and they do respect the entirety of the XRP ecosystem. This is just going to expand that further. And understand it. So yes, they're talking about custody of RLUSD, but keep in mind, for every single transaction of RLUSD that occurs on the XRP ledger, XRP is literally required. So this is a key development for something that is going to ensure the long-term viability of XRP itself. So we're going to talk about this. Now you might be wondering, why does Ripple even need this to be the case, given that Ripple's in the business of custody themselves? We'll get to that as well. There's actually good reasons for all this. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, now I want to make sure everybody's got a few key pieces of information before jumping into the news that broke on Wednesday. Here we have a headline from Reuters. This is from May of 2023. Ripple buys crypto custody firm Medico for $250 million. And that was their largest acquisition at that point in time. Obviously, it's been dwarfed by Hidden Road, over $1 billion. But this is the biggest one at the time, and this was a clear indication XRP is not just trying to be some sort of little fintech company. They're not just trying to engage in foreign exchange transactions. They want to be all things crypto on an enterprise level, effectively. And so they started to get into custody. They didn't stop there though. Look at this one. Here's another headline. This is June 11th, 2024, a little over a year later, from Cointelegraph. Ripple Labs closes standard custody acquisition deal. And of course, they're not stopping there. Here's a very recent development. This is from July 2nd of this year. Ripple applies for U.S. national bank charter as Crypto Eye's next frontier. And so it's not just that they're applying to literally be a bank. That is what that means, U.S. national bank charter. They're seeking to be an actual bank. They're also applying for a Fed master account. It's cited. It's in here somewhere in this article. Yeah, there you go. The company is also seeking a Fed master account that would give it access to the Federal Reserve's payment infrastructure and allow it to hold its stablecoin reserves directly with the central bank. And that's according to Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. So it wouldn't just be internally that they'd be holding RLUSD. It's also the case that the federal government could actually be holding, as a result of that, assuming this gets approved, the federal government could be holding RLUSD, which again, on the XRP ledger, requires XRP itself, which I think is cool as hell. And so I gleefully reported on that at the time. So then what's going on here? A banking partner for custody. What's going on with that? Here's the headline from the Crypto Basic. Ripple partners with oldest U.S. bank for RLUSD custody. Ripple has announced that the Bank of New York Melon, BNY, will be the primary custodian of the reserves backing the RLUSD stablecoin. In the announcement, Ripple emphasized that the move would drive institutional adoption of digital assets and bridge the worlds of traditional and decentralized finance. Given BNY's reputation in the financial sector, its selection as the primary custodian of RLUSD reserves could boost institutional credibility for the stablecoin. And so, folks, even if Ripple otherwise wouldn't have had a reason to have any sort of other entity hold RLUSD, even just the boost in institutional credibility, because this is the oldest bank in the entire country and the largest custodian on the entire planet, that speaks volumes. If you want to pick up the pace of adoption of all things crypto, but here specifically RLUSD and XRP, this is a good way to do it. That's a thing that you should do. And it's happened. Piece continues. As the oldest bank in the United States, BNY serves as a custodian for institutional and corporate assets. And then they go and talk about RLUSD and how it was launched in December of 2024. Happy to see that. And by the way, there's this headline. I'm just going to briefly mention this. This is from Cointelegraph. XRP finally breaking out with 12% rally after Ripple BNY Melon deal. I'm not convinced that really had much anything to do with it. The day before that, XRP was running also. It's already been doing stuff recently, and I haven't seen evidence that the timing even perfectly lines up. And in the age of information, when news breaks, if a coin doesn't start moving right then it probably doesn't have anything to do with it. It's not like you need to mail a letter and then the market responds 3 days later. That's not how things work here. And so I haven't seen evidence that lines up, so I'm skeptical of that being the case. But this is what always happens. You know, price movements happen, as certainly happened with XRP on Wednesday. And then whatever's happening in the moment, that must be the reason. Of course, it's very small brain analysis to state something like that, but this is typically what happens here. Here was Brad Garlinghouse posts about this. And by the way, he was on CNBC. I watched that interview. I'm sure some of you caught that. But he wrote here, joined CNBC this morning to discuss institutional stablecoin momentum and how trusted banks like BNY, just announced as RLUSD's reserve banking partner today, are ready to go all in on crypto with regulatory clarity. The U.S. is long overdue for crypto market structure legislation, which will protect consumers, establish jurisdictional swim lanes, and allow financial innovation to thrive. Okay, awesome. Happy to see that, but you still might be scratching your head saying, well, why do we need to do, outside that, is there a good reason to do this? Well, I think Wrath Economan pretty well nailed it on that. Take a look at this. This is a real short thread here. He said, why is BNY news? Ripple already had regulatory compliance for RLUSD using standard custody and trust. The BNY news doesn't change that or make it more compliant. I think it's primarily an indicator of scale and reputation and opens up faster, more direct global redemptions for Ripple. This is a great interview of Brad Garlinghouse, and he's referencing the CNBC interview, touches on the effort to obtain a banking license too. OCC, Fed Master Account, cites that RLUSD already has $500 million market cap after just 6 months. That's pretty impressive. That's a good start, I'd say. Cited XRP use and said, at core, Ripple has been a payments company. And then he says this. So yeah, scale, it involves a traditional banking industry stalwarts and puts custody outside of Ripple for confidence. And folks, that's a key reason. So it's not that Ripple's not trustworthy. That's not the point. If you have a separate entity, which is a trusted authority, and they've been around for I think it's 240 years, something stupid like that, that's going to instill trust. That'll make you more interested in utilizing RLUSD if that's an entity that would be holding it on your behalf, if that's your custodian. So I just think that there's going to be more trust as a result of that. Again, doesn't mean Ripple's not true. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying it's just the nature of things. Nobody's doubting the reputation of BNY Melon, okay? So yeah, putting custody outside of Ripple, pretty smart to have that option. Not that you won't have custody elsewhere. This is the primary custodian, fine. But pretty cool to see that, right? And so then he also wrote, RLUSD won't be another FTX or Celsius on BNY's watch. And then there's also this, just as an interesting side story. I thought I'd mention this. Have you guys heard of Matthew Melon? He was the heir of the banking dynasty here, if you will. Here's a headline from April 19th, 2018. The last days of banking heir Matthew Melon. This guy had just a boatload of XRP. He bought it. It was before the 2017 run. And so I'm guessing he probably, when he bought it, it was probably like half a penny. And this guy was a wealthy individual, and he passed away, unfortunately. Apparently, he tried some hallucinogen, and he ended up having a cardiac issue, according to this article. That's the rumor, at least, at a minimum. But here they cite what happened, the information about XRP. It's just a pure fascination, basically. And I knew about this story back when I remember as it developed. It was pretty wild. Because it's just such a rare instance. Like, this guy became ridiculously wealthy because of XRP specifically, even if for just a brief moment, because, crypto is volatile. But given that it's the BNY connection here, and then there ends up being this partnership with Ripple, it's just fascinating how this all turned out, right? And so anyway, check this out. In addition to leaving behind 3 children, because this is right around the time he passed away, Melon's death raises many unanswered questions, including what will happen to the estimated $500 million of XRP digital currency he owned. Melon's XRP had been worth well over $1 billion earlier in 2018, and he told Forbes in March he had been adding to the position as the price of the cryptocurrency plunged. XRP is the digital currency of financial payments company Ripple, and Melon had acquired a large amount of it, mostly from an initial investment of about $2 million prior to the boom in cryptocurrencies. Melon said he kept the digital keys to his XRP locked in cold storage in other people's names at various locations around the US. Okay, now, I checked before recording, and I haven't been able to find any indication that anybody has been able to retrieve this. So if anybody can find proof that it was, and this was dispersed and inherited by somebody, as a pure curiosity, I'd be interested to see it. I couldn't find it. So I'm assuming that did not happen. And it's because he just didn't have a way to pass it on. Of course, he wasn't planning on passing away at this particular point. But yeah, so he put in $2 million in XRP, probably, I'm guessing, when it was about half a penny. And then that $2 million became worth over $1 billion at its peak in early January 2018. And it was already falling by the time that this hit. But he was buying more. And of course, it ultimately took a while, but the price did come back, as we well know. Hit a new all-time high this year at $3.40, which I know that he would have loved to have seen. But isn't that wild? Somebody put in $2 million and became a billionaire because of it. Oh, it's just wild. That is just... And he was already wealthy, obviously, to be able to put in $2 million in the first place into something that's, highly speculative, I think it would be fair to say back then. I mean, it's still speculative by nature. Like, definitionally, it is today, even. I'm just saying, especially back then, boy, was it speculative. So it's just an interesting story, right? Wild stuff. So that happened, and then the bank that his ancestors created has now partnered with Ripple, and it's good for XRP itself. How about that? Crazy how stuff turns out, right? I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.